Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today I am doing an unboxing and review on these Fuumuui brushes. These are two separate sets, and I could not wait to try these out. I'm sure you've seen them on TikTok or Instagram. They've kind of gone a little bit viral, and I'm not usually one to buy the viral stuff, but I was intrigued and I figured you guys would want to check it out too. So we're gonna paint this cute little owl and let's check them out together. Okay, so I ordered these directly from the distributor, Fuumuui.com, and I did reach out, and all they would do for me was give you guys a 20% off code, but sometimes they're less expensive if you can find them on Amazon. So I have both links in the description, and the code to get 20% off on Fuumui's website is Ashley20, or as you can see there, they have their own code, Fuumuui. Mine's easier to spell. Just saying. So this little card came with it. Says brand story, and it kind of talks about their history. And interestingly enough, this is not my first time having this brand. I have purchased their travel brushes in the past, and I wasn't a huge fan, but I decided to give these a try. So these are the ones that I saw on Instagram. They're the squirrel needlepoint set, and then I also saw this set. It's the Svetlin Sofroniev, I think he's Russian, set, and I'm going to show you his website in a little bit. But I didn't realize that one of the needlepoint brushes actually came with this set, so we'll see at the end if I think maybe just buying the big set is a better deal. We will find out. So these are packaged really nicely. I'm actually kind of impressed. Yeah, the brush guard thing, the little plastic sleeve that goes over the brush, is kind of fancy. I don't think I've ever seen any quite like that. They are so beautiful. These needlepoint brushes are just really pretty to look at. Go ahead and pull it out of the sleeve here. Look at that. And they just feel really nice. Made of wood, obviously. Ugh, it's hard to get off. Okay. So they have quite a bit of glue on them, and will require some soaking in water. So let's just swish these around, and we'll open the rest while we let that sit. So that first one was the biggest, size 20, and then they go down from there. So satisfying opening things. Gosh, those were so sharp with the glue on them. You could shiv somebody. Gotta be careful. Don't want to accidentally shiv somebody with your paintbrush. I'm not gonna lie, I have bought a lot of paintbrushes, but I do not think I've ever bought brushes with this much of like that gum arabic gluey stuff in the bristles, so they were very well protected. So what's interesting about these is the hair around the belly is really soft and holds a lot of water, and the hair in the core, the long pointy part, is more stiff. It almost feels more synthetic. So it's just really interesting. I think we might have gotten the glue out of those. Okay, let's open the artist signature set here. Now these ones were packaged a little bit more intentionally. It's got like this foam thing, and they're all tied to it so they didn't flop around. So they're packaged really nicely. I will say the shipping took longer than I expected. They did come from China. So if you want these quicker, I know that you can get the needlepoint tip brush set on Amazon, and you can get 2-day shipping. But the Svetlin Sophronian set cannot be found on Amazon. So if you do buy these, just be patient. They do take a little bit for shipping, but I feel like it's worth it if they're good brushes. So a size 12 did come with the artist signature set. They're still, I'm telling you, there's so much glue in these bad boys. So there's nothing wrong with that. I was just very surprised. And you can kind of see how like gloopy the water has gotten. But you want to get out all that gum arabic. I'm not sure exactly. I think different brands use a different product for keeping those bristles stiff. So whatever it is, they used a lot of it. Okay, so this brush is interesting. It's a size 8 round, and even right out of the box, the tip is not very sharp. So I'm usually not a fan of brushes that don't have a pointy tip, but we will find out. Now this white brush, I am so excited to use. It has a very nice fine point to it, and it's very soft. I think the reason I like soft brushes the most is because they force me to use a gentle hand with my work. And when I use a stiffer brush, I tend to be a little more controlling, and my work doesn't look as, I don't know, it doesn't look as natural or fresh. I tend to overwork things when I use a stiffer brush. So Svetlin Sophronian is an internationally recognized Bulgarian. I am so sorry, I said Russian. Not Russian, Bulgarian. I apologize. And you can go, let's check out his website here. Beautiful work. I'm intrigued. I want to know what kind of paper he's working on here because it looks really nice. So you can read a little bit about him here. And I did notice he uses Daniel Smith brand paints. So maybe we need to get him on a Daniel Smith live session and see if he'll do a demo for us. So there's a little bit about him. You can go check out the website a little bit more and read more and see. He's got so many amazing works of art. I'm just totally blown away by this. And then he also has a 20% off code that you can grab on his website as well. I didn't mention free shipping, so you do get free shipping on these. All right, back to the brushes. This big bad boy is a size 8 round quill, and oh my goodness, the glue is taking forever. And that's the size 12. So the size 12 needlepoint does come with the set. Man, the thing was just really, really well protected. Look how loopy the water is. That's so gross. Oh, look at that fine point. I think I'm gonna like this one. There's just nothing like a big, thirsty brush with a really fine point. I cannot express enough. You've got to have brushes with a really fine point to be able to do what you need to do. Okay, so this is my handmade sketchbook that I will be using today to just test these brushes out. So this is the initial test run. We are going to do an actual painting with these later. And right here I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolor stick in raw sienna. Gorgeous color. And I'm going to start with the largest needlepoint brush and work my way down. So the way that I like to test brushes when I first get them is by seeing how thin line they can get and how long they can go with just one dip into the paint. That's a good indicator for me of how much water and paint they can hold. That's why I bought these brushes. So the whole point of having that great big belly on the brush is to hold your paint in water and slowly release it into the tip of the brush. So yeah, and then I like to see how thick of a line you can get as well. So technically you could use these to do a wash. It'd just be kind of weird. The whole point of these, no pun intended, is to get really fine lines and be able to hold a lot of paint. I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever used like a detail brush to try to get fine lines, it feels like you have to keep dipping back into your paint constantly. So these are to remedy that situation. They definitely hold a lot of paint. So this is the size, the next size down. This is a size 14. That first one was a size 20. And I will say the size 20 didn't get as fine lines, but if you're painting on like a full-size sheet of watercolor paper, that would work really well for getting fine lines. I mean, guys, it holds so much paint and water. I'm just completely blown away. So you can kind of see how that core is stiffer. I do believe it's a synthetic. These say that they're made of squirrel hair, but I read somewhere else that they were synthetic squirrel, so I'm kind of not 100% sure. I'm going to go do my research and find out for sure. I don't love the idea of them being actual squirrel. I'm not going to debate that with people or whatever. I do have a lot of students who use vegan products only, and I definitely sympathize with that. So I've been trying to find alternatives to animal hair brushes. I would say these are not that. Okay, moving on to the next size down. And here's where we're really starting to get into some fine lines. So this is a size 10. We do have a size 12 that came with the set, and I'll show that one in a little bit. I will mention that I only saw a couple hairs shed off of these initially. Since then, I have not had any shedding. So it's to be expected with new brushes. You may get a hair or two that sheds. Now, if they're shedding like crazy, that will just drive you nuts. So, you know, you get what you pay for. And these are decent price. Like, they're not super, super cheap. But they're also not crazy expensive. They're kind of mid-range. And I really feel like they're well made. So far, I'm liking them. Can I recommend them yet? I don't know. Stay tuned. I know a lot of you are going to go buy these before you even finish the video. I'm looking at you. You know who you are. Just maybe wait, because I'm going to say this. I've got to say this straight out of the gate. A brush is not going to make you a better artist. It's just a tool. It's important to have good quality tools, but the brush itself is not going to make you a better artist. It's the practice that you do with the tools that you have. So it's about practice. So if you can get really good using the crappiest brushes, then when you upgrade, you're going to be even better. So take it with a grain of salt. That's me up on my soapbox. I'll get off my soapbox now. But I often have people want every brush that I'm using. And the issue is that it's less about the brush and more about what you do with it. Okay, I digress. We are getting off the soapbox now. We are exploring now the Svetlin Sofroniev. Sorry if I'm slaughtering that. I am trying. It's called the Svetlin Sofroniev kit. Instead of set, it's called a kit. And this is the little guy, the size 8 round. And as you can see, it does not achieve very fine lines, but I'm sure it will come in handy for making washes and things like that. It does hold a lot of paint and water, and it's very soft. so thirsty. Okay, so I made a big mistake. I forgot to hit record. So here you can kind of see that was the size 8. The next one down is going to be our the needle point tip size 12. So there you go. And the next one is our white brush. This is called a white mop brush number 4 quill. I really like that one. And this bad boy is the number 8 squirrel mop brush. And oh my goodness, that holds a lot of water. Enough water to baptize a cat? I don't know, but it's a lot of water. Okay, so my initial test is finished and now it's time to move on to the painting. Today our subject will be this watercolor barn owl tutorial from Louise DeMasi. She's amazing. I've learned so much from her. She does paint differently than I do, so this was a little bit different for me. Just the approach that she takes. You know, I have my 5-step method. I start with the eyes, and she often will do the eyes halfway through or at the end. So it's a little bit different for me, and I will admit I kind of went rogue there for a minute. But anyway, I thought that this barn owl was the perfect subject to try out these new brushes on. Okay, so I'm getting all my supplies ready. I have a size 16 by 20 sheet of 300-pound Fabriano Artistico soft press paper. It's my absolute favorite. And I'm using the colors recommended by Louise in her tutorial, and I'm going to leave that to her. If you decide to head on over there and maybe take this for yourself, I highly recommend it. It was really insightful. So this is actually not a tutorial, this is a brush review, and because of that I'm only going to be showing sections of this. I'm going to start with this big bad size 8 mop brush for putting water down. It's great for wetting large areas, and then here I'm going to do some wet and wet. I'm going to drop in some paint. This is Mars Yellow by Daniel Smith. It's a fantastic replacement for yellow ochre. And boy, this brush holds so much water. I'm actually really impressed. And spoiler alert, out of all the brushes, I think this one has got to be my top favorite. I mean, look at the point on it. You can get really, really tiny fine lines, but you can also put paint down on a large area, or, you know, like I just did, wet a large area with it. Okay, so now we're going to switch to the size 8 round from the set. And looking forward to trying this one out. Like I said, it doesn't have a sharp point on it, but it's decent and it holds a lot of water and pigment, which is huge. A lot of my students in the beginning will struggle with water control, and usually we find out pretty quickly that it's just their brushes. So good brushes go a long way. Like I said before, they're not going to make or break you. They could break you. Sorry, they could. So it's important to have good products. Like if you're trying to do a certain type of art and you're using a totally wrong product for it, like if you're using oil brushes for watercolor, it's not going to work and you're going to be frustrated and you're not going to get the results that you want. So I really recommend, if you're doing like pet portraits and you're doing hyper realistic but also loose, you need to have a brush or a set of brushes that hold a lot of water, that can do a large amount but also can have a fine point to them. So I really think these are awesome brushes. I normally go for the silver black velvet round brushes. They are my go-to, my ride or die. Could I replace those with these? I don't know yet. The jury is out. But I'm always on the lookout. I'm always open to trying new tools. I never want to get kind of stuck in my little shoebox. So it's always fun to try new things, and there's always new things coming out onto the market. Sit back and enjoy some painting for a little bit, and we'll get back to you. I have to say at this point, this was so weird for me. Not only the fact that I did a background, but painting the body first. Because that's usually my last step in the process. I do the eyes first, then the nose or beak. Then if they have ears, I'll do the ears. And then we'll do the face and head. And then at the last, we do the body. So this was so weird. And I really had to kind of shut off my OCD for a minute and just follow the lead of the teacher and listen to what she was saying and try not to skip ahead or go off. And I will say a couple times I did go a little rogue, but then I had to go back to her tutorial and see what her process was. So anyway, this was just something that I noticed as I was painting, and I think it pays to kind of be self-aware. Whether you're watching a YouTube video and doing a tutorial, or you're working with a teacher, a mentor, or you're at a workshop. Just being aware of your thought process and also taking the lead and, being teachable and humble, and it just goes a long way. So take it from somebody who struggles with that you'll get a lot farther if you are being intentional and listening. And also paying attention to your thought process. That's huge. So here's what's interesting. I said in the beginning that size 8 round, I was thinking I wasn't going to love it. I ended up using that the most. And I'm not kidding. You can't use it for everything. As you can see, I had to switch to the needlepoint brush. These are fantastic. They really hold a lot of paint. You don't have to keep dipping back into your paint. And you can get some really fine points. Here I was struggling with water control. I just had too much water on the paper. I'm not a huge fan of wet and wet. I much prefer putting paint on dry paper and then blending it, softening. But we all have to do what works for us, right? So what I especially loved these needlepoint tip brushes for were all these little details around the eye. Anything that was like feathers or hairs or anything like that. I'm really looking forward to using these on like a dog or a cat, something with longer hair, but feathers are just as valid. So this was a really great subject to test these out on. I really love it. And I'm not usually one who does a lot of tiny detail, but I've been wanting to maybe bring in a little more detail than I usually do, and so these have been great. I'm just really thrilled about them so far. I think so far I'm especially loving the tiniest one. I couldn't tell you what size that is. Let's look. So the smallest one is a size 4. And the line width you get on that is so itty bitty tiny. And it's just wonderful. Plus it holds a lot. I don't know about you guys, but there's been times like I have these tiny little detail brushes that I use, but you literally have to constantly be dipping back into your paint. I often use a neutral tint watercolor stick with a teeny tiny detail brush when I'm working on the eyes. And with this one, I did not even have to reload my brush. I did an entire eye without having to dip back in. So it's gonna be interesting, that's for sure. I think I've had a little bit too much fun adding detail more than I normally would with these brushes. So if you're a detail person, I think you're gonna love these. Now, this is not unique um, to this brand. There are many companies who offer a brush that's similar. They all call them different things. So this isn't like some sort of novel new thing. I know Neef Brush, Neef, they offer similar brushes that have a really big belly and a fine point. So, yeah, you just have to look around. But this brand, I would say, is a little more cost effective. Yes, it comes from China. So you need to take that into consideration as far as, oh, and also it being possibly actual squirrel hair if that's something that is an absolute no for you. I totally get that. I myself have been leaning more towards synthetic squirrel or synthetic sable, that kind of thing. So there you go. And this white one, I love. I'm loving it for making swatches as well. It just has such a fine point and holds a lot of paint and water, and it's very soft. So honestly, every single brush in these two sets I used on this painting. Gotta do some splatter. I'm a huge splatter girl. I like to add a little bit of something. Okay, time to do my signature. So there you have it. This is my review and my kind of my first impressions. I say go for these. So the link to them is in the description, and all the other products I use will be in the description as well, including a link to Louise Damassi's YouTube channel and Patreon where you can go learn how to paint this owl for yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this and have an amazing week.